Hey guys, it's Jody from Jody's Touch of Style. And kimonos are a great summer topper, but sometimes they're a little boxy. So I came up with 8 different ways to make them fit your body a little better. So the first way I want to talk about is tying up the front panels. A lot of kimonos actually have a slit between the front panel and the back. That makes it a little easier, but even if your kimono doesn't have that, you can just take the front panel and basically make a little ponytail out of it. Now, what do I use for the ponytail? You can use a couple of things. One of my favorite things to use is an orthodontic elastic. And even if your kid isn't in braces right now, you can buy these. I will link to them below so you can get to them easily. But I like these elastics for smaller bits of material because they're clear and you only have to pull it through once. You don't have to tie it through a couple of times. You know, I also use a hair elastic at times, but because they're bigger, then I have to do it at least 2 or 3 times. So these elastics work great. And then look, now I have more space in the front compared to this where there's a lot of material. This brings it together and looks a little nicer. Now the second way is tying up the front again, but this time I'm going to do much more material. So if I wanted to shorten this and tie it up, I would pull it. So if the back is down here normally, I would pull it up to be where I wanted it. Say I wanted it more here or even here. And then I have this much material in the front. Now because I have a lot more material, you do usually need a bigger hairband depending on how thick your kimono is. So for instance, if I use the yellow one, it would match very nicely. If you don't have a lot of yellow ones, don't worry too much because even a different color, especially if your kimono is print, won't look too bad. As you can see, I had to tie this up 3 times. And then you have 2 basically ponytails in the front. Now I'm going to adjust this a little bit so it looks even nicer, but that's a great option. You can see it's much shorter in the back now. It's not as overpowering on my body. And if you don't like having this much fabric in the front, think about pulling up the material from the tie and creating more of a bow, more of a flower. You can do this a couple different ways. Take a few minutes to make it look nicer. Then it's not hanging down as much. You know, so you can see which you like better. Play around with it, see what you like. Option number 3 would be to tie these front panels together in the front here. Just like you can do to your shirt. Now, the problem with doing that, if your kimono isn't super lightweight, is you have a big bulk of fabric right in the front. And that may not be what you're going for. But if it's very lightweight, that works. You can even tie a knot. Again, you get more bulk that way. But instead, let's talk about a couple other options. You could pull them together and use the elastic so that it's together, just like I did with option 2 and the elastics on the side. Again, then they're going to hang down. But see how it pulls it together nicely? It's almost like there's a tie at the waist. If you don't like that tie hanging down, again, make a little bow in the front. If it's print, it actually blends in. You really don't even see it. And there are other ways to make this happen in the front. You could use a magnet. This is my Maggie's magnet. I talked about this with my scarves as a great way to hold things together. It works great on the waterfall cardigans. and it works just as well with a kimono like this. Now, this kimono it works great with because this kimono is a little more heavy. The magnet could actually be too heavy for some lightweight cardigans, and you have to figure out where to put it so that it all hangs together. So let's see. I put it like this, put it at the very back, and try to get all the pieces up together. This is a pretty hefty magnet, so it just depends on how big your kimono, how thick your kimono is, but that could be a nice option. Now, if you have a thinner kimono, this kimono is actually from my fashion box, which is a clothing service box, and I'll link to that below because it's very nice to have someone search for some items for you because you don't always have the opportunity to find items at every store around. But you can see this is much more lightweight, it's sheer, and so I have this barrette. It's actually called, what is it called? A flexi clip from Lila Rose, and I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. But this works great with a scarf. And so it got me thinking because a kimono is really basically a scarf with armholes. And so I could use this flexi clip to pull together the front ties, front panels of my kimono and have it hang in front that way. And so that could work great. You could pull it up farther if you want. Now the flexi clips do come in different sizes. So while this is a smaller, extra small, which works great for my lightweight kimonos, there are thicker ones because some people have thicker hair. And so a thicker one would work for my heavier kimonos too. So, and I'll link to that, how you could get a flexi clip in the bottom. Option number 4 is another way to almost tie up the front panel, but it's done from the inside. So I'm going to use my orthodontic elastic again, and I'm going to actually create I don't even know what you call it. I'm basically going to tie up some of the inside, some of the front inside, just by using the elastic right there. So then what that does is it creates almost a ruching effect and pulls it in so you can see it's not as overpowering as this side. And all I did was pulled up some of the material and put the elastic around it. So I did it up here towards my chest. You can do it more in the middle. So if I'm on the inside, I just grab it in the middle and wrap it around, and you can wrap it around more than once if you want. Like that. Now it almost looks like it has ruching at the waist instead of at the top more. So that's an easy way. You can't see it from the outside because it's a print. I like to do it more towards the middle, not as close to the edge, because then when it opens you can sometimes see that little bob of material, but that looks great that way. So number 5 of how to make your kimono fit you a little better, not be quite so boxy, is one that I'm going to use a belt with. And I came up with this idea because I use this belt trick with ponchos quite a bit. And really, to me, a kimono is a poncho, a cardigan poncho made for the summer. So sure, you could wear your belt just around the entire piece like this. You know, it works, it's okay, but there's 2 other ways to use the belt that I like a little better. One is to put it around you, but then pull out the front panels slightly. So then you really don't see the belt on the front except underneath, and depending on which belt you choose, it could be hidden. Yet it's still belted in the back, so you still have it close to your body in the back, but in the front it's still more loosey-goosey and flowy. Now the other way is to switch that around. And so if I put the front ones back in, and then if I pull out the back, you get the opposite effect. And let me just play around for a minute and show you what I mean. Okay, so now I have the front panels intact with the belt. And so this keeps it close to my body in the front. But the back, where is the back? The back is flowy, loose, and it's covering whatever I want covered. So 3 ways to use the belt. I like the... Now before I go on to the other ways to make your kimono fit your body better, I want to add this bonus tip, but keep watching because I have a couple more ways for the whole kimono look. With this kimono, this is another kimono I got from my fashion box. I love it because the front is more curved and not as overwhelming. But it's the sleeves that can be cumbersome at times. And if you look, you think, oh, those sleeves are a great length, and they don't get in the way as much. The problem is, because there's a slit in them, they hang kind of funny. So you can also get creative with your sleeves. And what I've done with these sleeves is just tied a knot in them, like so. And then it pulls it up more. It doesn't create such a big piece of fabric and opening that gets in the way, especially when I'm eating. So just like I'm doing these tricks with the front panels and making the whole kimono fit a little better, don't forget about these same tips with the sleeves if you need it. Option number 6. I also tried doing this with fashion tape, and it works on my thinner kimono with using fashion tape. This is actually, it's called men's grooming tape, but I'll link to some fashion tape. And it's double stick tape is what it is. You can peel off the one area, the front, and then the back, and it will hold materials together. This is great if you don't want to put a hole by using a pin in something, or with really lightweight scarves or kimonos. That's what I've used it for. But with this kimono, it's heavier, and so I used the fashion tape. It didn't last as long, so I'd recommend using a safety pin. And I actually like to use the safety pins that I get on some of my clothing holding the labels, because it's nice and big here and makes it just easier to use. So what you're doing basically is, this is the front panel, and I'm going to pin it to the back and then put it on. And let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to pin it about 1/3 of the way down because I still need to get my arm through this opening. So I just pin this to the back like that. I'm just going to do it on one side so you can see the difference. Okay, and then when I put it on, you can see it holds the material back there. So now you see a lot more of me in the front and not the material. But yet your kimono is still covering you in the back. It's still covering your arms. It's just not as overpowering in the front. And number 7. So this is the first time I did this. I took the front pieces and I just tied them together. And then I'll show you how I put it on. I just tied them in a knot like that. And it works. And if you're just standing around, it'll work fine. But if you're sitting against a car seat or against a chair, that can be bulky. It can start hurting. So let me use my handy dandy safety pin. And I'm going to pin the front together. Now, it's best to do this not too high up because you still need to put your arms in the sleeve holes. So do it closer down to the hemline, the bottom hem. and just safety pin those together. And now you're going to put the arms and the sleeves just like you normally would, but both front panels are behind you. Well, you have to get your arm through the sleeve. There you go. Both of the front panels are hooked behind you, and again, now it's going to just be a little bit in the front. It's still in the back, and you still have the sleeves, so it's not as boxy. Now, before I get to the 8th option of how to wear a kimono so it's not so overpowering, I just want to ask a favor. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. Just hit that subscribe button at the bottom. And a lot of times when you click that subscribe button, you'll get a little bell next to it. And if you click on that bell, you can make sure and get notifications every time I publish a new YouTube video. I don't publish them often, but every time I think there's something that will help you figure out how to style what you have or be more creative with your wardrobe, I want to share with you. And if you have any suggestions, let me know. If you have other ways to style a kimono that I missed, please put a comment below. And I'm also going to link to the products that help me do this, and I'm going to link to some great kimonos that are inexpensive too. Now, the 8th way I got creative with my kimonos to make it fit me better than being so boxy and overflowing is to create a top out of it. And you've seen tops called kimono tops. And what I did is I just took my kimono and I took my handy dandy safety pins. This time I needed 2. And what I'm going to do is take the bottom hem and pull it up here to the shoulder. Now this is one where you'll need to pin it. I don't think the fashion tape would hold it well enough to be comfortable, to make sure, especially if you're not wearing anything under it. Then you take the other end and pull it up to your other shoulder and pin that. So even if I didn't have this white top on, you can see that I would be very nicely covered with this. I would have a beautiful scoop neck here, almost more of a cowl neck. Depending on where you pin the tops, I could pin them back a little farther. You could do this when it's not on you, if that's easier. But here's another great way to wear your